Hi, my name is Theresa Heinrichs. Welcome to my studio here in Okanagan Landing. I'd like to take time today to talk to you about the process of painting and how the process of art has affected my life. You might wonder, why in heaven's name does she paint such big paintings? I happen to love the drama of a big painting on a wall. To me, that is just a way to make your room sing, make your art sing. When I take my big paintings out of my house becomes very boring. So I have decided that, and a long time ago I decided that I would go for the dramatic effect of a large painting or a little small painting as a study. I don't do in between, not unless I have to. And I was very fortunate when I was one of the artists at the Kelowna Art Gallery, the Kelowna Airport Art Gallery. I had a tremendous number of clients go through the airport and stop and look at my large paintings, and I actually had to send them far away. I sent a 4 foot by 4 foot painting to New York. I sent a 4 foot by 4 foot painting to Texas. And and this is not a cheap procedure, by the way, and when I phoned the client in Texas, I said, you know, it's going to cost at least $500 to send this painting to you. And I'll never forget her reply. She said, honey, that's 500 Canadian. Not a problem. It's a statement piece. And that's kind of the way I've looked at my art. To me, I like to make a painting, have a painting, make a room come alive, make a statement, just like she said. And so I really, really enjoy making large paintings. 4 by 4 is often my size, like that one, and then I sometimes go 2 by 4 because that way it's easier to transport. But what happens is these paintings, because of their size and their heavy sculptured texture, to me, they add another window to a room. In my dining room, I have a blank wall, and I have windows beside it, looking out into the lake, but nothing in that wall, and it looked dead. So I did a very large painting of a forest and a lake behind, and very heavily sculptured, and I put it on the wall, and it gave another window to the room. And I just feel the room is complete and happy now with that kind of painting. My process is actually kind of fun. I've done this for many years, and I start with inspiration usually when it can be stepping outside into the balsam root fields, or it can be looking at a glacier, it can be looking at wonderful forests. I go to Kaloya Park in Oyama because they have a tremendous water lily pond there with beautiful weeping willows coming down, and I've painted that so many times and will continue. And I've got 3 started now because I don't have one of my own. I'm very fortunate, they sell. So I need to keep painting them, and hopefully I'll be able to keep one of my own. And I am very much influenced by Monet and his water lilies when I paint those. And I have a process that is kind of handy-dandy after many years. I've had 20 years since I've finished teaching art to work up my process. And I find that I use the canvases to draw on. Now, I want you to look carefully at this canvas, because guess what? Canvases are your best friends. You can use the plastic. Don't take the plastic off. You can use plastic as your first sketch. So what I do for my first sketch, I take just very simple Sharpie felt pens, and actually I can show you. Okay. Alrighty. So as I was saying, this is a valuable resource, this cellophane covered canvas, because you can use your Sharpie and just draw your scene on the plastic. Very simple, keeps your canvas pristine, and gives you a little kind of a sketch thing going on. And then when you have finished drawing it, as I have in this one, This will be a water lily scene. You take your plastic and you take some carbon paper, excuse me, and you put the carbon paper under the plastic and you push with some pressure, and that will leave an image, and all of a sudden you have this image. It's very light. You would not leave it like this because this never touches your canvas. Sharpies are not archival, and you don't want anything in your painting that's not archival. So you take an archival pit pen, and then you draw using the Sharpie lines, and you've got your shapes with your archival pit pen. Now when you finish painting over this, the archival pit pen pigment will disappear. But meanwhile, you've got a lovely sketch that you can start painting with. But that's just the beginning of the process. Then you get into your sculpture. Now, when you're sculpting texture on a canvas, you choose your palette knife. You use something called molding paste. This is Golden's molding paste. It's a lovely, lovely textured paste, and you sculpt on your painting. So you take your Golden and you take your palette knife, and I happen to like this offset knife because I want to get lots of texture going on in my painting. So I start applying it like that. And you can see that by painting it that way, you're getting your texture and you're getting a flow, and you're starting to make your painting come alive. And that is a wonderful way to get a lot of life and texture into your painting. Now, when that dries, then you start adding color. Sometimes I add color or pigment to the molding paste, but usually I add it after. And you start off this, so let's say this is dry. And oh, actually I have a canvas here that is dry. So this is your third step. Your texture is dry. This is actually a sunflower painting. Your texture is totally dry. Now you get to do things to add color. And what I usually do, I usually start with a very simple process. And it comes from a book I read called Yellow, Red, Blue. And for my process, I always start with yellow, because in every painting you need to have yellow. So I will take my paint, I will start adding yellow along here and here and here, and then I will take red, and I will add red where I want to, and when it's finished I will take blue, and I will paint blue along here. So yellow, red, blue. I also do a small study. This is a small study that's just started that has texture as well. And that will be kind of an idea for my water lilies just to get started. And you can probably see here, just through this just being a sketch, that the lilies have found their spot, the pads have found their spot, but the water weeping willows will be coming on top. And that's when I will paint, and then I will add more texture. And then I will add color on top. So I use many, many layers in my paintings, but it makes for wonderful depth. And that is something I love to do. Okay. This painting is something I'm fond of doing, a 4x4, sometimes a 3x4, where I really want to make it exciting, so I really add the texture layer by layer. So as I demonstrated in the ones that aren't painted yet, I'll do the first layer of texture, I'll then do the first yellow, red, blue, and then I'll start to add more texture, and the trees themselves are the final texture because they're standing out. And you find that by adding all this texture, adding all this color, you get a tremendous 3D effect that I find really exciting in a painting. And it can be as abstract as something like these quail. Now these quail that I did are, this painting is only 2/3 done because what I do before I add the color is I work, and I can show you these, I work with, again, yellow, red, blue with acrylic inks. So this painting of the quail has had the first coat, which is the yellow, red, blue. Now you can see, as well as using those colors of red, yellow, blue, I've used other colors. And what I love about doing this texture and this layer technique is nothing ever clashes, because everything is built on a similar color. So for instance, this green was built on this yellow, and that is throughout my painting. So there's never a clash. They just all kind of meld and sing to each other, and that makes it quite lovely. When I've finished all the colors in the acrylic inks, and this is kind of an indication of how long it takes me to finish a painting and how many layers there are, then I go to a painting I go to this step, which is the inks are there, but now I'm adding all my acrylics. And my favorite brand of acrylic is Golden. Again, we have yellow, red, and blue. There we go. And we just have a great time adding those colors on top, and you can use all kinds of medium to make it flow. I really like airbrush medium, Golden's airbrush medium, and that makes the colors and the paints flow. And so that way we get even further depth, we get even further color. And then if you like, because I have a whole huge closet full of colors, we can add those on top. But just enough to hint, but not enough to make anything clash. They tend to just sing together and make a painting like that. And that gives you that lovely textured feeling that I love. Thank you very much for visiting the studio. I hope you enjoyed the visit, and I hope that in your artwork, or you're just observing things, that you think about the color and look for the richness of the color and enjoy it.